And hello, everyone. I'm Dan Lutz, and I'm here on the front lines, waiting for my co-host in the battle of the deep against the deep state, the cabal, the Illuminonkeys, and all those that wish to enslave all of humanity for their own selfish reasons. I just got word from Tink. He's going to jump on a little bit later. He's taking care of something, so he said to go ahead and start. So I will start. So first of all, I would like to say Happy Easter to everyone. This has always been a good time for me since a little kid. Always remember the traditions of Easter, right? And I was brought up Catholic, cataholic, and by the age of 13, when it's time for the Easter Bunny to, really, take a back seat. And, don't, Santa Claus, he's not coming to town. But I still kept alive the feelings as a kid, what that meant, and I passed that on to my kids, and we had, I dressed up as Santa Claus. I had terrific Easter egg hunts, and I was, supportive of the feeling behind it, the spirit of what we had our intentions behind, regardless of where, in the past, ceremonies were used for one thing or another. There should be no, relinquishing of those traditions that we know, because someone is in the background laughing, saying, "Oh, they don't know what they're doing. They're really worshiping our God, or they're doing this, or they're doing," doesn't matter. Well, what we're doing is we have the energy, and we're focusing on. They try to co-opt that energy and make it into something else, which is what we should not allow them to do. So that being said, I wish I had a chocolate bunny. I wish there was I've grown to love See's candies out of California, and I have a tradition of getting a particular type of candies from there. I like more the higher end chocolates. As things got older, my kids actually got really. They had the mix of the the lower end chocolates, like the chocolate covered bunnies, marshmallow bunnies, is also one of my favorites. I actually love marshmallow is one of my favorites. So even though I know it's probably one of the worst things, if it's I find corn syrup in things I won't buy it, but Peeps, give me the Peeps. Um, so, but I will have the closing I'll have today, since chocolate is not wasn't in the. There's a few things we have of chocolate, but it's more of a. It's a I don't know what to call it. It's chocolate like. It's cacao. It's cacao powder. It's actually very strong chocolate. If you want to, it has is very close to chocolate flavor, but you need so little of it, like a quarter of a teaspoon, not a tablespoon, a teaspoon, to get like a full punch of chocolate flavor. So it's very strong. But I'll have some chocolate today, but no marshmallow. Wasn't on the shopping list, and we're only able to shop once a week now during the lockdown. So, which we were able to stock up ahead of time. Well, this is again a rebirth time. Right, that's part of it's spring. I saw that there was the White House. There was a video put out. It was like looks like the morning. Must have been yesterday morning, and the birds were singing, because when do birds sing? In the spring. There's many places, when they're caged is another one. I like to use that one when I know someone has been apprehended and they start singing. So this may be one of those times we're really looking for a renewed country, a renewed world, that we're moving past this. Now, was there anything that happened, on the 10th or the 11th? And there was. But it kind of got, very, wasn't talked about too much, but it was a major development. I'm not talking about kids being pulled out from DUMBs, right, or being rescued. There was a lot of talk about human trafficking. That was an issue, and there was, some reprieve from the virus, right? We'll talk about that in a little bit. More supporting the idea of like David Icke, but there is something there. Right? It is something, but it isn't what we think it is. But what was released was subpoenas. Durham subpoenaed many. Don't know who. But who was he investigating? Well, Comey, definitely. Brennan, Clapper. Everything to do with treason is what he's issued subpoenas. Now, that's not the D class, because Q says, when does this all start? Without giving a date. We're all fishing around. I've been looking at, hey, there was the 10 days of darkness, and then there was the 3 days of darkness, and these are all things that are being talked about. There's no date from Q per se, except when you look back and fill in the pieces from the past. It's okay. Oh, that's what it was. So that it's more like the marker when there's an alignment from a current post and a previous post. Then you can look at those as dates, but. What was the clue that QAnon said? Q said it starts with the D class. D class equals start. declass equals start. So when the declassification happens, that's when it starts. So subpoenas are, hey, come on in. We're gonna have a conversation, because I've spent a year gathering a lot of information, and I want your side of it. And so that's what has just happened on the 10th, Friday. Good Friday for subpoenas. It's a good day for subpoenas. Good Friday. So there was something that happened. Is that major? Yes. It is major. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. So when is the declass? When do they all go nuts because declassification just shows all the evidence of what was going on? That means all the stuff that they keep blocking out, right? Oh, you can't see this and you can't see that. You can't. Here it is. Maybe there's a few things that, but I have a feeling they're just going to let it fly, right? And let everyone see what's been going on, because behind all this secrecy is how they've kept everything from us. It is a major, major announcement. So anyway, let's move on. Okay. Now this, well, we're gonna watch a little bit of a video, and it's about a little shy of an hour. We're not gonna obviously listen to the whole thing, but we're gonna listen to the beginning of it, because I think you're gonna want to listen to it, the whole thing, but just to give us a flavor of what's going on. Go ahead and line that up one moment here. There we go. What was that? Yeah, I don't know what popped up over here. Oh, that's the coronavirus thing. Okay, so this is from George Webb. So, coronavirus bioweapon or accident of nature, from Friday, April 10th. It was streamed. So we're basically starting at the beginning, and we're only going to go a little bit long, maybe five minutes in there. Maybe we can stop along the way, but we're going to pick up on it, because what he's going to do is he's going to paint a picture of, with an example that says, how is this a bioweapon? Is this virus a bioweapon, or is it just some natural, thing that happened in a bat? So here we go.
Coronavirus, bioweapon or accident of nature. And what do I mean by coronavirus, bioweapon or accident of nature? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. You may have seen me advocate for the position of bioweapon, given the past history and what I know about the genomics. And you have a lot of folks out in the mainstream media advocating for the opposite. So what I wanted to do, I did this earlier with Alex today, I've done this before with McDuff, is present the information to you as a lawyer might present it, and then you can make your own decision. In those kind of decisions, you have to consider everything. You have to consider the circumstantial evidence as well as the direct evidence, and I wanted to go through that with you today. One of the speakers that's making the rounds on the lecture circuit is Dr. Shiva. Can't remember I don't know how to say his last name. I know it's A-Y-U, and I'll learn that. But Dr. Shiva did an analysis, and this is early on, which was adding to our knowledge so that, again, as jurors, you should know the who, what, when, where, and why of the coronavirus outbreak, and then make your decision from there. You shouldn't make your decision before you get into the jury box. So Dr. Shiva compared the SARS-1 virus to the SARS-2 virus. So the current virus out there is a SARS-2 virus. And he said, hey, there's 1,500 base pairs different out of 30,000 base pairs, kilobases, which is, a significant change. It could be done by nature, or it could have been done by a bioweapon. We don't really know. And he said the only way that you're able to know, and this is a RT interview that I'm referring to, is to actually see all the different types of genomes that could have been infected by a biovirus, and then work your way backwards and figure out which ones could have infected the genome of this SARS-1 virus to change it to a SARS-2 virus. And if that was all the information you had, you couldn't make a guilty or decision. You couldn't say guilty or innocent. You'd have to say, hey, I really don't know. I have reasonable doubt which it is. I know that, for instance, Dr. Zengli is out there collecting bat fecal material. I know she's bringing it back into her lab in Wuhan. I know she's transfecting it into different species, mice, rats, etc., cats, all kinds of mammals. That could have been how it happened, or it could have been the bat actually biting an anteater. And then the anteater was being smuggled, and we caught it, and we found out it had coronavirus, and therefore it went through this animal pathway. So as sure as you really, at that point, you can't make a decision. You need more information, or if that's all that the prosecution has for bioweapon, you pretty much have to rule, hey, probably happened by accident, or at least I don't have enough information, right? Well, that's where I start getting into the analysis of the genome. This is sort of like saying who was at the scene of the crime, either by tracking from cell phones or cameras or people who are eyewitnesses, to saying, hey, who was there at the scene of the crime?
I'll interrupt just for a moment. So what he's saying here is that you really need to analyze, to make a decision on, is it natural, or was there some influence by someone to create this as a bioweapon, right? So he's saying, he's just laying it out. Saying, listen, if you want to know what is going on here, you got to look at what's the possibilities, and could it have happened naturally? And yes, but could you make a judgment on that? Would you be able to really say without a shadow of doubt it happened this way? Well, if that's all the information you had, no, you wouldn't be able to. Right? So what he's going to do now is he's going to really talk about what are those possibilities that if you look at this evidence, this is what was going on, this is who this person is, this is who this person is, this is who this person is, and what are they telling us now, right? And what's their involvement? Might say it's circumstantial on that. So here's some circumstantial evidence. Right? Okay, that's one type. But then is there hard evidence? That's another type. So when you add up, then you have enough to make a decision on whether it is a bioweapon or not. All right. Well, we'll continue.
And the three proteins, we have three proteins that weren't in the virus before, okay? Not the first 6 versions of coronavirus, but all of a sudden they appear in the 7th coronavirus, okay? There's 3 proteins, okay? And I've talked a lot about one of them, which is glycoprotein 120, okay? But I've not mentioned 2 other ones. I've talked a little bit about glycoprotein 41, and then I've also I've not mentioned a 3rd protein called GAG, which is a polyprotein. You don't need to know what those are. You just need to know that in the 6 previous robberies, somebody's trying to make the case of one of the 6 previous coronaviruses. No, these 3 proteins weren't there before. They are there now. Now, if there's 1,500 bases, you would figure, hey, okay, what are the probabilities that they would all be there in the new genome of this new virus out of the changes? Now, the way mutations happen, and I'm not going to try to take you through computational biology, but they usually happen at random. Usually, they basically happen at random. They don't usually have a man-made field. So if I was going to randomly, let's say, let's just take a book that's 30,000 pages. That's a big book. But let's just say it got a new chapter, 1,500 pages, an insert, 1,500 pages. Just think of that as the juror, okay? So as a juror, you know, let's say maybe each book on your bookshelf has, let's say, 3,000 pages, okay? And you have 10 books on your bookshelf, okay? So you can visualize that. That's something that a juror can visualize. And then you say, well, a new book is inserted and half of it's new. Okay, well, that could happen. That could happen. Okay, I have a mental model now of the virus, the 10 books, and I have the mental model of how big it is, about 3,000 pages per book, etc. But if I said to you then, now, all of a sudden, and let's say we've got the works of Shakespeare there, okay, the 10 books. I know there's more than 10 plays, and I don't know how many, but let's just take Shakespeare because it's fun, okay? And so you have all the Shakespeare, and then all of a sudden you see 3 separate sections from 3 other books from the same author, okay? So
it's an important point that he's making out here, right? So in this example, 30,000 page book, 1,500 new pages are replacing 1,500 pages that are already in there. They're in different locations, divided into 3 sections. Let's say 500 pages a piece. We're going to take out these 500 pages. We're going to substitute this one. So it's all from the same author, right? So it's like it's not Shakespeare, right? Now you have someone else writing a whole new kind of play, right? You're just going to take 3 random chapters out of there and stick it in this book of 30,000 pages. So that's the example, and why it's important to realize that this is what's happening with this virus. There's another author other than nature.
let's say you see Kurt Vonnegut all of a sudden, okay? You see, let's say, a little bit of player piano, but a book from one book that he wrote. So you see talking about Trithalmador and the scene that he talks about going off to Trithalmador. You see the scene where he's in the Battle of the Bulge meeting Donald Barr by accident. And then you see the Schlachthof 5, the Slaughterhouse 5, the decimation of Dresden, near where the Nazi weapons lab was. Okay, so you're looking at the genome, and all of a sudden in book 9, let's say, I don't know exactly where I think it occurs in about book 5, from what Dr. Shiva had said, but I think it's more toward book 9. But we'll get to that later when we talk about the genome. But all of a sudden, you're not a Shakespeare expert. You know a couple of the flourishes, the quotations, and so forth. But you're not, and there's that older English style of speaking. But all of a sudden you hear, them talking about Trithalmador and, this sex kitten in space. And then all of a sudden I'm on the front lines with Donald Barr, and I'm meeting Henry Kissinger, and I'm getting passports for Nazi paperclip scientists, and then Kurt Bloom's Nazi chemical weapons lab is being blown up here with bombs and so forth. And you're saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm not real familiar with, let's say, Macbeth, but I don't remember that in Macbeth. That's new. That's in Macbeth. That's not random. Okay? The glycoprotein 120 is a critical stickum protein, okay? Glycoprotein 41 is a critical stickum protein to making the protein stick and increasing the reach. I'm not saying the lethality of the virus. I'm talking about the reach of the virus. You may have played with those little darts that have Velcro on them. And Dr. Shiva talks about this and how the HIV virus kind of sticks to the target virus. And if you think of that dartboard, it's kind of like the reverse Velcro. It's very much like that, all right? If you get a bunch of stuff of carpet or something in the Velcro, it doesn't stick very well. As you play the game more and more, it sticks in the carpet and so forth. When the game's new, it sticks really good. Glycoprotein 120 and glycoprotein 41 are those stickum proteins. and they not only help stick to the virus stick to the target protein, but it also helps inject the viral the package, basically the viral load into the target cell. Okay, so it's a critical functional. It's not just a random. It's critical functional. It's almost like Kurt Vonnegut saying, "Hey, I'm going to meet Donald Barr. Here's going to be 100 Nazi scientists. We're going to dress them up in American uniforms. We're going to send them into Amblev. We're going to have a shooting there. We're going to get the American uniforms." It's instructions. It's very detailed instructions. Okay, and I'm using a part of. If you're not familiar with the Slaughterhouse-Five, you can read the book. But I'm trying to say that all of a sudden you have to start saying, "Hey, wait a minute. I'm seeing a lot of Vonnegut here in this Shakespeare. Where could the Vonnegut have come from?" Okay, let me repeat that. I'm seeing a lot of Vonnegut here in this Shakespeare. Somebody got Vonnegut in my Shakespeare, right? You're not saying, when you read those things about Schlachtoff Fünf and bombing Kurt Blom's, Dr. Mengele's laboratory, or meeting Kissinger and Donald Barr at the front in the Battle of the Bulge, you're not saying that's random. I recognize this. Glycoprotein 120, I recognize this. I remember when he meets Kissinger and Donald Barr. And
so these proteins are familiar, right? Because they exist elsewhere, right? And so, and as you say, they know what they do. They're sticky, right? They assist in, it's something that was added, an additional, to make it sticky.
There's also Catcher in the Rye there. J.D. Salinger's all there, and all the American intelligence officers there. And I remember Allen Dulles gave us a candy bar, and this is something specific. You remember this. That's the way these scientists are looking at glycoprotein 120. Hey, I remember when we did that operation and did the Ivory Keys and got all those paperclip scientists into the U.S. Oh, yeah, I know this. So I'm taking a kind of a ridiculous example here, but I'm just trying to say, you don't recognize glycoprotein 120 and how important that is, but somebody who's read the book and studied Vonnegut and read the book several times knows it pretty well and says, "Hey, wait a minute, I recognize this passage of Battle of the Bulge," right? And the same thing they do for glycoprotein 41, and there's this third protein called the GAG protein. It's the assembly protein. And just remember, it's going to be very important a little bit later on. But the key thing is, after you read another section and you saw Trithalmador, you said, that's not something on Earth. That's not a part of the Nazi paperclip program. That's this guy's dream, because he's trying to forget the firebombing of Dresden, right? Right? So that's not a part. That's straight out of Vonnegut. That's not Shakespeare. And the same thing with blowing up the chemical weapons or the biological weapons lab in Dresden. That's, hey, I recognize this is all not only Vonnegut, this is all Slaughterhouse-Five, okay? Well, that's how I look at it, and that's how people who've been dealing with this stuff for years look at those three different proteins inside this new coronavirus. Because they're all from the AIDS. They're all from the HIV virus.
Boom. That is a revelation. To know that it comes from, right, is the same. These particular proteins are the same that are in AIDS. Now, weren't we discussing this on a relationship between the cofefe with the adrenochrome, and it's then now has been infected with coronavirus, and now it kind of has some AIDS-like qualities. So now things are starting to line up, right? They're getting more information. They're now tying this to actually, the same elements that are inside AIDS. So, and I'd also just on that note, and to see how the plan is ahead of the game on QAnon or Trump in this case. I think you might recall if you see a lot of Trump that he said, I can at least 6 times I've heard him say, that they've cured AIDS. Just keep that in mind, right? Just keep that in
Not AIDS, but they're all from the HIV virus. So it's not how did nature randomly change 1,500 amino acids. You look at the size of each one of these. Glycoprotein 120 is 85 amino acids. That's about 255 bases. And GP41 is probably about 150 or so bases, and GAG is probably 100. So about 400 of the 1,500 bases are altered. But what I'm trying to say is that they're organized. They're organized. It makes rhyme and reason. You read it, it's not just gobbledygook. It's not just 99 monkeys typing. You recognize that as not only Vonnegut, but you recognize that as our good friends in Slaughterhouse-Five. So you have to say, well, how did the Slaughterhouse-Five get into my Shakespeare, right? How did the Slaughterhouse-Five get into my Shakespeare?
That's a good question.
Okay. No, somebody could have inserted the Slaughterhouse-Five into my Shakespeare, or it could be random. It could be 99. People talk about Shakespeare all the time. It could be 99 monkeys. If you have enough monkeys typing on typewriters, you will get Macbeth. Now, I don't know what number that is, how many billion chance that is, and you probably will get also, if you have enough monkeys typing on enough typewriters, in the day we used to say typewriters, now word processors, you will get Slaughterhouse-Five eventually in enough time. But remember how long it takes this virus to go from one to the other. These other variants are very recent in our history. 2009 with MERS. I think it's maybe even more recent than that. I know 2006, 2007, but we're not talking about eons. We're not talking about eons. Now, what I'm not saying is it didn't come from a bat. What I'm not saying is it didn't come from a bat. 93.6% of the genome of the bat is similar to the HIV, to the human. So I'm not saying that this didn't come from a bat. I'm just saying, was it intentionally transferred from a bat to an intermediate animal, like a rhesus monkey or a mouse, and then transfected into a human? That shows bioweapon. That shows bioweapon. So remember, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I don't have to prove it didn't come from a bat. I'm saying it came from a bat. I don't have to prove that it didn't transfect a mouse. I'm saying it transfected a mouse. And I'm also saying that it was then transmitted to humans that way. And now I'm going to also offer you all the testimony of the people who work at the Fort Detrick Weapons Lab, okay? That's exactly what their job was.
Okay. So let's just summarize this a little bit, because this next section gets a little more interesting with the current players that we see on the scene. And this is a very detailed. I'm spending a lot of time with this because I do feel it's important, right, to know what we're seeing, what we already been discussing, who's surrounding Trump. Okay. But so he's saying that yes, there was a virus that it had some natural occurrence, and they were and it did move from a bat into a mouse. How did that happen? Was that because the bat bit the mouse, or because it was taken from the bat and placed in the mouse? Either way. Right? But these particular markers are really a sign that are screaming out, hey, red flashing lights, there's something going on here, right? So let's move forward. We're going to talk about some of the people now.
I'm going to offer you that they say our job is to take the 3 chapters of Slaughterhouse-Five and insert them into the Shakespeare. That's what we do. That's what we do all day. And we see if it lives, okay? We see if the book holds together. That's basically what we do. So I just wanted to establish a way to look at this so that you can think about it and with something that you're familiar with. Now remember also that all of a sudden, for generations, ever since coronavirus we've known about, and remember, your Lysol can says kills coronaviruses, since the 1960s, right? Since we've discovered this form of viruses, right? When with common cold, again, that's when Fort Detrick really gets going with its paperclip scientists, but we'll leave that aside. When the common cold first comes out, all that period of time, till, let's just say 2009, to be generous, we never saw these HIV things come in. But now all of a sudden we see them come in to the genome. All of a sudden we see this Vonnegut getting in our Shakespeare, right? So that's something to consider. Not just one of the proteins, but all three. And not just three random proteins, three functional proteins, okay? Which, again, if you would be shocked, I think, if you went into the library and you were picking out your Shakespeare and all of a sudden you saw this Vonnegut, and then you said, well, wow, that's a weird random change. And then you went over to another library, you saw it again. You'd say, hey, wait a minute, this has to be man-made. Sort of like the first building getting hit in the 9/11 and then the second building getting hit. You say, hey, this is a man-made event when you see the second building getting hit. The third protein, when you see the third protein inserted, again, a critical assembly protein, a critical functional protein, it starts very much looking like a bioweapon. So you can't just start. Dr. Shiva gives us a great, kind of draws the bounding box for us at 1500 bases as the difference between SARS and so forth, and then we start moving forward and talking about the proteins that get inserted. Now, who are the people that have made their careers since the late 70s specializing in those three proteins? Remember, glycoprotein 160, which is the favorite protein of Dr. Redfield at Fort Detrick, okay, cleaves into those two proteins, which is glycoprotein 120 and glycoprotein 41. So it's sort of like we had a guy who tried to copyright the book, right, from Vonnegut, those two chapters. We have not only the author, not only somebody who's read it, we have the author who tried to copyright it, because that's exactly what he did. That's the 1992 article from the New York Times, where he's saying, hey, he promoted this, and Fauci and him were running fast track illegal clinical trials. They were on the side, sort of sidetrack trials, so that we could beat the slow train, the slow FDA train, the slow clinical trials train. Okay, that's like the author of those two chapters of Slaughterhouse-Five being also there when the virus is first seen. Okay, that's Dr. Redfield. He's right up there on stage. Okay, he's right up there on stage with Trump. Okay, now let's look at the other two people that are right up there on stage with Trump, and that is Fauci and Birx. They also, well, let's take Birx first. She's the assistant to Dr. Redfield for those two proteins.
Wow.
So it's almost like Dr. Redfield was the one tapping it out on the typewriter, and then he gave it to his assistant, Birx, to make 10,000 copies. In this case, they made 500 copies, and their cohort was 500 people at 17 different institutions. We believe those are military installations. We still don't have that answer. Okay? Again, if you saw the first occurrence of the virus, and you saw the author of Slaughterhouse-Five, and then you saw the person who...
Yeah. So, human experimentation. That lovely woman that's up there in space. And, of course, Fauci. Right? You know, that they're out there giving so much confidence to the people. Human experiments. You know, getting ahead of the FDA, so they don't have to go slow. Interesting, and they don't know where those 500 people that were infected, you know, where that was. Was it military, or was it, you know, civilian, or Ethiopia, maybe.
Openly brags about being the person who did the copy editing and the copy checking. Also was there. You would say, hey, this is not a random event. I don't think 9,900 or how many monkeys you need to have to create Slaughterhouse-Five. Okay? You don't need, it starts, a normal jury would say, hey, no, this is obvious now. There's the author and there's the copy editor or the copywriter, and they're admitting that they wrote it, and so obviously they have the best knowledge of who inserted it, right? They applied for the patent, okay? But now let's go to glycoprotein 120, okay? Who's the guy who's applied for 4 patents for glycoprotein 120? That's the other chapter, right? That's the other chapter. Well, it's Dr. Fauci. They're all standing up there with Trump, all 3 of them. It's like the 3 authors of the 3 chapters and the copywriter and publisher all standing up there of Slaughterhouse-Five, talking about this release of this terrible 3 chapters that got into our Shakespeare. After a while, you start saying, wait a minute. I'm not a genius, but I know how the 3 chapters got in there. It's you 3.
That's it.
It's you 3 guys. You're the ones who wrote it. You're the ones who transfected it. You're the ones who hired the Chinese graduate students to CRISPR this in. Some people in the jury would jump to that conclusion, and they would be, there's nothing you can tell me on, I don't care how many monkeys that you have in your model, I know it's those 3. But I'm not willing to do that. I want to keep giving you more information in the jury.
Okay.
And we'll let you have some more information. Now, what if I added another guy who's not being pictured up on their stage, which is Dr. Bavary, right? You say, well, you know, you may have the author, you may have the publisher, you may have the copywriter all up there on stage, but how about, you know, how it actually happened? They actually weren't there for the latest round of COVID ID, but their proxy, their guy named Bavary, certainly was. He was the one hoarding all the research on GP120, right? He was the one who leaves there where we have a breach. He was the one. Remember, there's a breach at the Fort Detrick Weapons Lab. Remember, they say they do weapons. We'll get to virus and vaccine in a second, but there's no need to produce a vaccine, to just produce vaccines at any weapons lab. You produce the virus in order to then see if the vaccine stops it, right? You always produce the vaccine because you want to vaccinate your own soldiers before you release the virus on your enemy, right? It makes no sense to do one without the other. Virus and vaccines go together. Even though they say they went from bioweapons at Fort Detrick to just biodefense, that's ridiculous. They admit you creating weapons, creating viruses to then test the vaccines. They said they destroyed them. But again, we're talking about a facility that had a level 1 breach where the door was basically left open. And he goes, and his behavior, if let's say we had a breach at the bank and all the money is missing out of the vault, and then the guy goes and buys 4 different Porsches, just as normal jurors and police officers too, they'd say, hey, where'd you get those Porsches? Remember when Dr. Bavary drives the truck out of Fort Detrick, 4, not 1, but 4 startups fall off the truck at the University of New Mexico. Again, not New Mexico, Nebraska. And again, they use the university, the CIA Offutt Air Force Base there in Omaha. It's a long history. It goes back to the Franklin case. I don't even go there. But CIA base is right there. They've used the University of Nebraska as a front forever. And he just happens to go in. They just happen to create a private wing that the public doesn't get to invest in. They just happen to partner with Dr. Bavary. They just happen to have all these postdocs, these Chinese postdocs, that we can blame it on if we ever have an outbreak as a bioweapons attack, going back and forth to where? Wuhan. Where's the other place they're going back and forth to? Oh, Winnipeg with Dr. Plummer, okay? And so we can blame it on Dr. Plummer. If Dr. Plummer The only guy smart enough to call us out on this, if we can have a few postdocs go back and forth, and we can plant something in their luggage, and we can blame it on Dr. Plummer. He's the only guy who will call us out, right? If you don't know Dr. Plummer, he died in February of this year under questionable circumstances. Yeah. Okay, so let's keep going. I know a lot of people have.
So the plot thickens, right, in this tale. So we have, it going back to the 70s, right? We have what's going on with AIDS in the 80s. Fauci and the guy from the WHO, right, were in Ethiopia, right, and working on AIDS, where all the money disappeared, right? Then so are they, seeing how well their creations are working? Just, this is a curiosity, right? Because if they're involved with this, no, maybe they have nothing to do with the creation of AIDS. But these particular 3 proteins, that are in HIV seem to be pretty unique, right? And, they like the coronavirus from their other studies. Did they combine them if it was naturally occurring? Did they take one from the other and mix it up and say, oh, look what we get here? So we've got a lot going on here, right? And so what's the motive? What is our motive? Is it just money? Is it about money? I tend to think not, considering everything else that we're looking at with the cabal, right? With the whole human trafficking, about wanting to, reduce the population of the planet. I think it's more about an evil agenda. Will they make money at it? Of course. Who owns the patents? Right? Well, it goes all back to following the trail of money, right? And they end up making the money while they're giving the vaccine that ends up tracking everyone and deciding who is valuable or not valuable with a social score. So, and it looks like Tank has joined in.
Hello. Hello,
Tank.
How's my volume here? You hear me okay?
Yeah, well, it's a little light. But again, I was just going over a video. We went 25 minutes into the video. It's a pretty powerful video by George Webb. That's his channel, and it's from Friday, April 10th, and he really talking about he gives kind of a good metaphor on explaining how the coronavirus has 3 particular proteins that it's most likely, that this has come from it being implanted on purpose. These particular 3 proteins. These 3 proteins are also present in HIV. And then I was also making the comparison with Covfefe, right? And we know that affected the adrenochrome. And also I pointed out that Trump happened to mention at least half a dozen times that I remember, and that we have the cure for AIDS. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Over the last year,
right.
He's kept saying this, right? It's out there. Oh, it's because when it gets known that this is now related to AIDS, we want to talk about fear.
Yeah.
Right? This is a fear virus.
All right, it's definitely a fear virus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, interesting thing today. It was a call with Kim. I had a call with just Kim and our guy who was supposed to give us information on the on the wallet system. And we went through that, and I'm not going to say much about that particular call, but then Thomas had a smaller call, and so it was like Kim and Thomas, and also a young woman who did some work with Kim a while back, Ava, who actually worked up there, and they were all kind of sharing some of the past experiences and stuff of things that have really far out amazing things, actually. Describing this area, this safe zone where Kim and Thomas are currently. But in reference to Corona, Kim talked about something. She said that the COVID-19, okay, it was really just the predecessor. It was laying the groundwork for COVID-66. Okay, so COVID-66, she referenced a poison that is used to assassinate people with, and that now she's talking about fentanyl, right? And fentanyl that will just be scraped against people, and then what would happen with the fentanyl is they would go to the hospital and they would give them, the person would think they were having a heart attack and they'd give them nitroglycerin. I think, right? Nitroglycerin, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that would react with the fentanyl,
and they explode.
It would cause the heart to crystallize and explode, right? So now the same similar reactions would happen with this COVID-66, in that it would attack both the lungs and the stomach, and then as treatment began, some combination thereof would cause it to crystallize and essentially explode and kill people that way, right? So that's a little more aggressive, even than AIDS or anything else right now. And that would explain why they actually have prepared for what seems to be an apocalypse, right? They have hospitals shut down, parks shut down, people shut down everywhere, locked in their homes. Everything's ready to go for a massive strike, right? They estimated 2 million deaths, and there's roughly 20,000, I think.
16. I thought it was 16, but maybe it's gone up.
I'm just throwing. I mean, that number. Yeah. The point is that it's a very small fraction by comparison, right? I mean, not even close. I mean, how anyone can say, if Trump
and we know it's inflated. It's an inflated number. It's as though nobody is actually dying from it.
Right. I mean, you have let's see, stroke and heart attack, cases are down by 40%. Why? Because every time they die, they're dying from corona. Nobody's dying from pneumonia, COPD, right? Any of these other lung issues, it's always corona. So it's dramatically reduced, right? It's not near. As a matter of fact, it'd be hard to really consider it a legitimate threat at all. By comparison to, if you look at the deaths from the flu this year, are like 110,000. By comparison. So
I was actually looking up the death rate in the United States by itself, right? And coming just deaths, and just as a total, it's somewhere around 65,000 a day. That's normal deaths.
Or just normal deaths.
A death. People just dying.
Right.
2.5 million a year. 65,000 a day. So I was trying to find if I could find a correlation and kind of rough it out and say, well, this is how many people are dying now compared to what it normally is, and say, well, what is the increase, right? Yeah. So it's just interesting, I think that the more that is coming out, the more we can tell that there is something there, that this is we're being played, right? And that's what everyone is waking up to, and and everyone's gonna be pissed, and and we're gonna be blaming the bankers, Bill Gates, Soros, Fauci.
Yeah, these are not people that like to be blamed for stuff, right? I mean, it's the strangest thing. They'll do anything not to just be caught holding the bag, right? It's the weirdest thing. It's like sometimes it makes you wonder, right? They seem to hate us so much, but their biggest fear is that we don't think highly of them. It's like It doesn't really make
Well,
sense.
well, I think it's because they know that they're not looked at fondly, that means that they're going to be looked at, well, by through the pitchforks, that are waving at them. So people chasing them down.
Yeah, I was watching, on Twitter, and people kind of attacking men like, you've got all these grown men just locked in their homes, right? Like doing nothing as we're, I mean, like, imagine if it was this easy to just get everybody pushed in their homes, during World War II, right? Imagine the damage they would have done. I mean, you essentially have everyone just waiting. Waiting for what, though?
Right.
Because it gets worse. Like I'm in New York, right? It's actually, I gotta be honest, it's uncomfortable. They shut down the park. They took the park across the street from my house, and they literally took the entrances and they weaved in another fence, right? So they didn't just put up a gate; they weaved in a fence so that you can't even, you're not even supposed to get through, right? And so, like, if I take my kids over to the track to walk around the track or something, just walk a track, right? It's like they're gonna start arresting people, dragging people off of buses because they're not wearing a mask, things like this, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is so absurdly ludicrous to me.
Yeah.
This whole process. Every time I go to a 7-Eleven or grocery store, there's more giant plastic film separating us from one another, right? Because they don't want us to come together. That's what it comes down to, right? So if you really want to stand up to this machine, then the best thing to do is to assemble. Come together like we need to. Like, I was making this argument today,
right,
with Kim and Thomas, is that, like, the key is to assemble the people, right? It's not enough, like all this nonsense of protests that they don't care about, but if you actually use the law to assemble a body that is united in force, right? And Kim was saying, like, then you have to give people hope. You have to give them a reason to assemble. Well, it's tough. It's like this old argument, right? Like, I remember people would say, like, like an argument against atheism, right? Was this? It was, well, if I'm right as a believer in God, let's say, then, all right, if you're right, there is no God, then nothing happens. But if I'm right, you go to hell. Right? It's kind of like what the argument was a kid, right? And I look at that with this now, it's like, well, that's not enough, right, to really give someone hope, right? But it's like, there's no bad thing that comes from us assembling, right? But what's most important is to actually liberate and have a voice, right? Everyone's home now with no voice. They're just being decided upon. All matters are just decided upon, right? They're invoking panic based on a false pandemic, which did not happen. And to be quite honest, it was a biological weapon that was planned to be released on the people, and they were preparing for war. At very least, people should know that. Yeah. They should be aware. No, in reality, we were preparing for biological warfare against the people. That was stopped.
Yeah.
And it's a victory. It's a victory, right?
It is.
That's what we should be talking about right now.
Yeah. We did get past this because people are not dying from it, right? And whatever they're trying to now hype this up and try and make it. It's going to be changing, next week, right? We're going to see people going back to work. I can't see them keeping it together because we have doctors coming out saying this is not correct. This is not anything. And the number of people in hospitals, their healthcare workers are being let off, right? They're furloughed. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
We don't need you today. All right. So we have something else that definitely was going on. Something that Trump said yesterday, this war update. We're up to 184 countries now against the invisible enemy. Right? So our side is winning. We're picking up countries, right? That are in the battle against the hidden enemy.
Now, put up or shut up. Like all this, like I got, like I'm.
Yep. Put up or shut up, Tank. That's it. Yep, that's what I thought. Not a word.
No.
That's a good place. You put up or shut up and you can't speak.
I know, right? Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, I just had a secret mute button here. It's like,
yeah, I know. Like that's pretty well played. No, but I got a pretty thorough report on this today. Like, talking to Kim, it's like, she's got the money. It comes all the way down through the back index, right? It gets to the Federal Reserve, and what happens is she needs a code from the Federal Reserve. So guess what she does? She gives the code out because she is the Federal Reserve. She controls it now. Right? So I'm like, that's great. Wow, it's amazing. What an incredible accomplishment, right?
mm-hmm.
So she puts the code in, right? And guess what? Everyone else has to do too when they get to the Federal Reserve. Kim has to give the code out. So nobody can go by the Federal Reserve anymore. The most feared entity that, the scourge of humanity. Guess what? It's Kim. These jackasses are, they're still even now willing to oppose. But with the Federal Reserve, they never would have opposed it, right? So she goes by the Federal Reserve. She goes by all the banks. She goes by all the clearance, the compliance, everything, right? She brings it all the way down to the actual deposit level at the bank. She calls the bank, physically calls the bank. They say, yes, your deposit's here. It's cleared. It'll be credited to the account in 48 hours, right? Which is the web level, right? In other words, that is the part where it's already there. It just has to be acknowledged by the account so we can spend it. And then what happens is it crosses this plane, and it's followed by some kind of code that. So for 2 days, they wait. Now that's an unnecessary step, the last one, right? But what it does is it gives the deep state hackers, right, enough time to create like a tail virus kind of, right, that follows the transfer in the account. So as soon as it hits the account, the tail part of it kind of decodes the code and it gets withdrawn, right? Something like that is what the belief is, right? Mm-hmm. After some, an hour and a half of programming talk today. So that's like the last piece, right? That's it. That's the obstacle they're holding the entire freaking world hostage with. That's how hard they're fighting. And so to me, right now, here's President Trump, out there, waffling back and forth. Meanwhile, right, and he's on the public front of doing whatever, battle with the useless, whatever this is. Meanwhile, all the real work, all the heavy lifting got done behind the scenes by Kim. That's the truth, right? And what's hard to, really accept to me is like, all you got to do right now is all the groups out there that were, I guess this is the hard part, right? It's everybody out there who is part of the, hey, let's release a virus that's going to crystallize in people's lungs and stomach and cause it to explode in mass. Now, what do you think Corona-19 or COVID-19 really was? COVID-19 was the precursor to allow the vaccine to be let out.
Yeah.
And what would have happened? The vaccine would have been laced. It would have really been COVID-66,
which doesn't spread. It doesn't spread very well.
Right. But it injects very well, right? So you start injecting everyone with COVID-66. I'm sure some people would have reactions, and some people wouldn't. Yeah. Well, after you mandate everyone needs the COVID-19, the Corona vaccine, because President Trump did receive the unredacted white papers on the coronavirus. What do you think was on it? It was what happens with COVID-66, which is why that was blocked from, coming into the country. And why did they get blocked? Because the sleuth team or the white hats who figured it out? No. Because Kim told them what was going to happen. Yeah. That's reality. And so it's like, it keeps coming back. These guys are so determined to take credit for every little thing. But Trump was honest about it on Friday. He said, I got to make the hardest decision I've ever had to make. He goes, and I hope I make the right one. I'm like, yo, that was an honest moment.
Yeah.
You know, but it's true. You just got to decide.
Well, considering the whole apparatus of everything, right? All of government, all of finance, everything built, right? And then someone that actually now has control over the entire system says, "We're not going to do this anymore. Join with me."
Yeah.
It's a hard decision, right? Because it's going to flip everything, right? The whole thing gets reversed, and the money starts flowing to the people instead of the few. And that's going to be a different world. So I pray that Trump finds the wisdom to make that correct decision.
I hope he finds the wisdom and the courage. And I'll tell you what, but all the people, if we could just get the information to the people. So if you really think about it, what's standing in our way? Other people, right? Other people who, are either uninformed, don't believe it, or they're very informed and they don't want their power taken away. Something to that effect, right? So it's getting the collective to realize, look, we are one people, right? You don't get anywhere by betraying your own race,
right?
Because you decided certain attributes should be weeded out, right?
Right. Whatever the color, whatever the size, whatever the shape, whatever the height, whatever the color hair, curly or straight, flat or big nose.
Right. I mean, that really is what it comes down to, because you decided this is attractive, this is not, this is intelligence, this is not, right? These are good things to have in a very efficiently well-run society, but we can't have these quirks because that doesn't benefit us, right? And you weed out all the things you don't like, and you make humanity significantly less than what it really is. Right? That's what they decided that they have the right to do, right? And nobody has that right. Nobody has that right, And it's a tragedy when you think that is even something that we embrace, right? Because you've got that latent mentality all throughout our society. Somewhere it's there, right? Which, I can almost guarantee you, none of those people, or most of those people, don't think of themselves as Nazis, right? That would be very insulting. But that's what they are, right?
Right.
And it's not because they're white supremacists; they're just human supremacists, right?
Well, the whole
because they're anti-human.
The eugenics ideas of eugenics, about favoring one race, one type over others, and then we had Operation Paperclip that brought that right into the heart of America, right? Brought over all of these out. Now this was approved at the highest level for this to happen, right? Because there was a sharing of ideas. There was racism, right? There was there is racism, but I'm saying a heavy form of racism that existed, coming out of the Civil Wars, coming out of slavery around the world, right? There was, and there still is slavery. We're still dealing with it, right? But now it's been whitewashed and made to, I don't even imagine that slavery still existed when I was young. Right? Even calling things human trafficking is just like calling the cabal deep state. Oh yeah, there's a deep state. Cabal, there's no cabal, right? You can't think about the cabal, right? But same with this this whole idea that we're doing human trafficking as a problem. It's slavery, right? And we're still dealing with it, taking other people's labors, for your benefit.
I have a friend, right, who's an expert in what he would call Black American history, right? Because he would say that, first of all, all people that appear to be black are not from Africa, right? Is what he would say. So, and in this, one of the things he said, and then was confirmed by Shirley Craig, I think, told me this the other day as well, is that that there was more Dutch, like white European Dutch slaves than any other race in this country.
Followed by the Irish.
Right.
Yeah.
Followed by the Irish, and then then actual African Americans, black people from Africa, right? So it clearly wasn't about the color of your skin.
No.
Right? It was they hated you, right? From where you came from, right? What your values were, what your beliefs were. Right now, that's a hard thing, right? You can enslave people based on that because this group, we agree, we hate what they believe, right? Who they are, where they came from, we hate that, right? So they justify it, right? So they had to actually change it so it became about color, right? And then you can create racism, forgetting that there's just one race of people, right? It's human, is the human race, and they get us to hate ourselves, right, and hate each other over superficial attributes that really have no bearing. But what we do is we hype up things that don't matter and put all this incredible emphasis on this is so important. My gosh, can you believe he had the nerve to do this? Now, I'm telling you, I saw this yesterday. I don't know if we got a chance to talk about this, but I was so disappointed when I had this meeting with one of these groups that is getting ready to go to the White House. It was a very big meeting, because they are tackling the issue of human trafficking right now. These meetings from the other groups he's associated with, they're going in, sounds like twice a month to me, from what I understood, right?
Right.
So I'm like, wow, what are they talking about? They must really be doing some great work, right? And after hearing what they had to say, I listened to talk for over an hour. I listened so carefully, waiting for something that was unique, that was different, that was good even, right? They completely ignored all the real trafficking. I mean, not the real trafficking, they completely ignored a bulk of the damage being done, right? And they completely shy away from the biggest enemy, right? It's like, how is that where we're at, How is it that we can look at the biggest enemy, the biggest threat, we're just going to ignore that, and we'll just create something that pretends to address it. We're all playing a big game of let's pretend, and that's the tragedy that's taking place worldwide, right? And has been. And we've got to, at some point, say enough of this game, enough of playing let's pretend. Let's do something different. Let's connect, unite, and take action on things that matter. And that's just that's what I was thinking about. Just amazing.
Well, it would be good to be at those meetings. The first time I heard about kids in cages, it was probably maybe 7 years ago, right? And that to wake up to it and understand it at that point was that this was something that is ongoing. I was immediately thinking about Star Trek, but the Star Trek Enterprise when they went to the Orions, right? The Orions, the green people, right? And they had slave markets and they had people in cages. I'm thinking, it's the Orions, right?
Oh, yeah.
Reptilians, green skin. So how obvious is that, right? It's like, but all right, but
totally.
It wasn't, how is it's possible that this is existing now, right? How is it or it just never went away, or it's just expanded beyond belief, and that's what I think. It's expanded beyond belief.
Well, you're right. It's expanded beyond belief, right? Because now this statistic is per capita. In other words, it's relative, right? That there's more slavery now than at any other time in history. Like, it'd be one thing if it was like, well, we have billions of people now, so of course there's more. No, it's the percentage is more. It's a higher percentage of people in existence, and there's more people, so it's twofold. Like, that's how is that real? Like,
Yeah.
I thought we beat this, right? I thought
Yeah.
isn't there laws?
Wasn't that the
What is
purpose of the
happening?
Civil War? But it
Yeah,
wasn't.
right.
That wasn't the reason for the Civil War. It was attorneys.
So here I do have a little bit of a challenge, because
Yeah.
I got on this call, and I was, and like it was I really got a lot out of it. It was awesome, and thank you to Thomas and Kim for doing that today. It was really great. And it was a 3-hour call, right? Like the last 30 minutes, Thomas and Kim asked me to talk, and I started talking about talking about these assemblies, right? And Kim was very big on, we need to give people hope right now more than anything. And she, kind of telling me like, what is it? Make sure you give people something, do something that no one else is doing, right? And she was kind of getting on me, and I'm like, Kim, you do listen to my show. You listen to us. That was just me, right? So, but on a serious note, I think I have a ton of respect for Kim, so I really take it to heart, right? I take it to heart. So I thought to myself, okay, well, what is it? What is it that gives people hope right now? Or why is it that people don't feel like they have hope? And what is it that we can provide, really? Because I think about this all the time. I feel like I spend all my time doing this. What is it that changes the game right now, right? Because we look at this from she said the most searched term on the internet right now is coronavirus. That's what's searched all the time, every day, nonstop, right? So and we were just talking about how do you fight that? Now, in my opinion, at this moment, which could change, very soon, I look at it and I say, well, first of all, give people a voice, right? You got to give people a voice. Well, how do you do that? Well, you got to get people to stand together, right? Actually assemble, do it the right way, put it on paper, and then give results with what you do, right? So all those things have to happen. All that comes down to breaking down the barriers that prevent information from going out. So you've got all these people, you got all these same idiotic groups out there, right, who are just people like us, but they're willingly enslaved, and they're paid for it better than we are, right? So they're willing to be the head slaves. So that's YouTube and Google and these other groups, right, who think they're superior because they have one thing they do well, and they think that makes them superior. Because
and their idea that they've been fed is that's going to save the planet, right?
Right. This will save the planet because they believe the first lie of environmental poisoning is carbon emissions.
Yeah.
Well, the only people that think that are people that need less oxygen in the air.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I guess the reptilian Gates clan and things like that, right? So now I realized somebody called me about this, and they were like, nice guy, and was listening to Daniel, what his name is, David Steele's thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Now, did you see Del Bigtree was either part of that or something, or some video? I guess there's some video out there, right? With like this, they were talking about different things, and Robert David Steele was, I guess, further on, they were talking about this transition of humanity and how this transition is coming up, and how if you're willing to unlock your DNA, you're going to be moving on to a higher level, and all these things. Now that's pretty universal language. A lot of us understand things about that, right? Here's how subtle the language is. Here's how subtle it is, right? You could say that, but if the word from the beginning, progress, for me and you means totally different things, or if the word peace means something different.
If you need nanites to basically unlock your cells,
right,
there's probably a problem there.
Right. So but this goes back to the meritocracy people, right? Like, we're going to have a meritocracy, and a meritocracy sounds like such a highly evolved way of living, right?
It does.
Those who will thrive in society, those of the highest merit.
And who has
right?
merit, right? So, but
Yes,
but I'm the one that judges what has merit. Just so you know,
Right.
I'm the one. It's just me. No one
Now,
else. But I get to say what has merit. And if you don't have merit, you're out of here.
that's right. So there you go. So now what happens, right? Because now, if with my activity, if I'm acting the best way that I think is right, but you don't believe my actions have merit, and you're in control, well, now I'm screwed.
Yep, you're screwed. I don't believe in what you're saying right now. You're out of here.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
That's how powerful the ignorance can be.
Yeah.
That's why freedom is the only real option that allows people to be people, right? Because humans, by nature, we are, perfectly flawed, right? There are qualities about us that are incredible that no one can improve on, and there are all of these parts of us that constantly need to be improved. And even when they're improved and they're perfected, we realize maybe that's not what we wanted in the first place. That is the human experience. That's part of what it means to be a person, is to go through things, to overcome challenges, to find out what you can do, and later on, what you can do better, find out what is absolutely impossible that you can do, then finding out, no, I can do that, right? And that's the incredible, of this whole journey of life for humanity, right? Being trapped in this place of time and space, going through things to experience the creative, journey that you learn how to create something from nothing. That's being human, and that is perfectly flawed. It's perfectly flawed. And that is what it means to be human. And to take that from humanity to make it more efficient, to make it more like some other culture, is destroying a whole race of people.
Right. Yep.
I think we need the freedom.
I don't think there's any merit in that.
Neither do I. I think each one of us has to be an individual, our own personal society within ourselves, a meritocracy, right?
Yeah.
We decide within ourselves what has merit, and then we act accordingly.
And I think that's why we have ethics and morals, which are not the same thing, right? And you have to understand what the relationship between them is. So doing something that is ethical, and then doing something that is moral, and that is also the same way the cabal within their own spectrum, they have their own morality, and within that morality, they hold their ethics, which includes things as they have to inform us of what they're trying to do to us, right? So that's
Right.
part of their ethics, right? They have their own morality and their own ethics. So this is and this happens within every group, within every society, within every culture, and there's nothing wrong with that. And having multiple meritocracies, right, is within that group. So whenever the way I see meritocracy actually working, right, is really from the standpoint of a family, right?
Yes.
You have a father and a mother, right? That is the structure. They have children. The mother and the father have roles. Within their roles, they basically make their rules. And please don't take offense if I say things like, my wife, if I go into the kitchen, she tells me to get out, right? She doesn't want me there while she's trying to cook, because I like to cook, right? But that's that's within her role. She wants to make sure that I'm not there. That's fine with me, right? But this is a little nuance, a little tiny nuance of how that's how I have to respect her domain, or her so, because what she is doing has merit, and I must not discount it.
It's a great point. Yeah, and it's in whatever it is, whatever the rules are, to respect the rules, that people play that is valuable, right? And then people naturally find their place where they have value, right? Where they feel this is where I can contribute the most, being myself. You know,
Yes.
that to me is that to me is what There's a place for everybody. Right? There's a place for everybody. You know, and I really think that naturally, that our I think naturally that people will fall into those places and roles, based on just the way the nature would produce us.
So the cabal has a place. It's down in the pit. Now we understand why they were put in the pit. You stay down there. Don't come out.
Yeah, I mean, like, so it's like, so this is, but this can't have, what's happening now is where it's like, okay, when do people collectively agree that this version of society that's being imposed on us is damaging to the entire human experience? I mean, I'm in New York. I'm telling you, it is in my entire life, I have never experienced something like this. You know, where, and I'll tell you, what I realize is, we're a pretty upbeat family, right? Like, we'll laugh and joke and play. Like, I'll make a YouTube channel for my daughter just to, get the time to go by and have more fun, right? And
how many subscribers does she have now?
I think she's up to 220. She's doing okay. It's coming along.
Her link is in the video description below. Please sign up.
Yes. Thank you. But my point is now, we're pretty aware, right? And we're pretty healthy, right? Like, I've got all types of things here to, that we feel very confident about our health and, our kids' health and things like that, right? But you gotta think people are in full-on panic mode meltdown, right? Like, they're afraid to talk, afraid to touch each other, afraid to shake hands. Think about it. You're cutting off any kind of human contact with other people. And if you do go near someone else, I got scolded the other day because I got too close to somebody at the store, right? And it's all been.
Did you sneeze on them?
No. I just.
Excuse me.
I won't even. I'll do everything I can not to cough in public because I don't want to scare anyone. But my point is that now I really feel as a collective like, wait, can we just have an honest assessment, even with completely ridiculous inflated numbers, over the top seclusion? They have imprisoned every single American in their home.
Yeah.
They have imprisoned us.
So Alex Jones finally has his dream come true. Prison planet.
Yeah. Well, no, it's always been. I mean, what Alex Jones is talking about with the prison planet is actually real. It's a real thing. But yeah,
I got it. No, I'm just kind of poking fun at Alex Jones a little bit since I've over the years I definitely had flip flop between the battle between was he disinformation agent, controlled opposition or not, right? And so there was times I listened because he's very entertaining, right? And he's bringing out some really cool information, very like, oh wow, I didn't know about that. So you got a lot of information, but there was always something that seemed like it was twisted. And what really set me off on really knowing for sure was his stance on QAnon. And that's like, okay, well now I know, and he's still at it, still trying to take it down.
Yeah, and that's what happens, right? They lean on they'll be right on a bunch of issues, lean in on it. At the end of the day, you know what? My new assessment, my belief around this is, with all alternative media and all regular media and everything. If all you do is talk about the problem and you never offer a solution, then you are controlled opposition.
Yeah.
Period. Because people that are healthy, I mean, like, if we're really healthy, We're connected with the world. We're connected with ourselves. Our internal purpose. If we want the best for ourselves and one another, we naturally will look for solutions.
Right.
If all we do is talk about the problem, live in the problem, complain about the problem, all we will get is more problems. But if we just realize the simplicity of how easy this is to fix, look how easy this is. Today I listened to Kim describe a solution, and I'm not going to give you the context of it, but I'll say this. Essentially, it was like, well, what if I just cut all of them off and stop letting them be an agency? It was like, yeah, that actually would fix the problem, wouldn't it? Yeah. If Kim just right now destroyed any ability for the CIA to communicate, within any network, anywhere, right? If she took away all of their privileges, all their access, their control of any connection to any intelligence system, no matter what it is, if she took all that away, because she could easily, which, by the way, I hope and pray she does, and she took that entire agency down because they refused to do the right thing, what would happen? Because these are things that I know Kim can do. For example, she could take away the ability of anyone to have a bank account or be in any banking system, entered in any system, to gain access digitally from any place, whether it's the internet, a building, the banks, anywhere. She can do that. So you try to hack Kim, she'll take away everything, right? You won't be able to walk in anywhere again, right, without being recognized. Keeping in mind that there's facial recognition software everywhere, right? So she could go that far. She'd go that far. Now imagine everybody at the CIA complicit in this corruption. If she took away everything, and the CIA no longer existed, and those who committed the most egregious crimes, all of them couldn't access anything. All of the alleged leadership.
I expect you're going to be muted any moment.
Yeah, so do I. I'm saying it for their benefit.
Their fingers on the button. Should I do it now? Come on, let me do it.
I know. Well, what they should be, though, is afraid, right?
Yeah.
They should be aware, like, oh my gosh, that is possible. Because it is possible.
But they have the power to mute you.
Right. So they think they're doing something. Well, it's like, but the message is to them.
Yeah.
Right? So they should realize that not only is that an option, that is right on the edge of, very, very possibly, it's either you or us right now. Now, they're people too, right? Here's the difference. We are people that are functioning and working towards the best and the greatest good of the people. They are people trying to kill all of us. In that scenario, they have got to be eliminated. Because if we eliminate them, we live. Now, that's the reality of what is here. Or just stop being dicks and cooperate. Both of these are very simple, though. They're both pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? But at the end of the day, let's stop playing the big game of let's pretend. Let's stop pretending that it's okay that you keep trying. Let's right now, stop pretending. Stop lying to the president. Let's stop pretending that you're not. Stop pretending you're his friend. Stop pretending you're our friend. Stop pretending you're a politician with the best interest who represents constituents. Stop pretending you're an agent that protects people. You're a mercenary. You want to thrive, and you've chosen the wrong side. You have turned your back on every single human on the planet. Make better decisions. That's how simple you can go from zero to hero. Make a better decision. Stop doing that. Stop paying hackers. I mean, it's a thin veil right now. It's like one hacker, who will be, tracking things.
They're down to one hacker?
I mean, like one hacker at a time, right? Like she brings the transfer data. Like basically, it's like, it's like, think about it. They've got, quite a few people monitoring just Kim, everything she does. So you got to think, it shouldn't be that hard, right? And yet she's completely taken down the fortress, right? You got a couple guys shaking inside of armor that's too big for them. Pretending to be tough right now. That's what you have. So.
Yep. Well, we're at that point. I mean, they will decide to change their ways, hopefully, and There's not much time because Trump's making his decision. And I think he's on this earth to make the right decision. And we're going to move forward, and you're going to be left behind.
You know, I'm cheering for Trump. I'm cheering for him to do the right thing, and whatever it takes to do it. At this point, I really don't think you can hold back anymore. You know, you have to go all out, lock down everything, move every possibility of failure out of the way, put the people in the best possible position. Tell the people the damn truth already. Like, this whole thing is such a sham. Like, bring the white paper out that explains, like, look, here's why we overreacted this way. The reason why we put all this ridiculous, over-the-top things in place, you know, and why they're doing this is because they were all planning to, and the media was just following their script, reporting on deaths that aren't even real. The hospitals are, you know, trying to create the appropriate amount of fear because they think they're doing people a favor.
Right.
Because there's a bigger, badder, meaner version of the virus. And it's not a virus, by the way. It's a pathogen, and it's a pathogen that's being used deliberately as a biological weapon. It's amazing. Like, how is this all true? And it is true.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what's really happening. Like,
And that's
wow,
funny.
it's
That's
incredible.
exactly what my daughter was saying to me. You know, it's so hard. This is all true. Everything you were saying, it's all true. It's all true. And you know, the amount of people that are waking up to it, and this is it. Now, I don't know if you heard this, but there was the event that happened on the 10th.
Oh, what was it?
And you missed it? Oh, well.
It was so big that I missed it. Yeah.
Well, let's see how well it was, you know, covered up. Durham basically sent out subpoenas. So that's
Wow.
So that's, I mean, 1 year of investigation. He put out the subpoenas on the 10th. Good Friday. So there was something that happened. But it's kind of like, it's like with everything else going on, how can you think that that's like anything other than the rest of the normal bureaucracy stuff that happens, right? And it's the next, oh yeah, okay, put out subpoenas. It's like, it's not on every news channel. He subpoenaed. Who did he subpoena?
Yeah.
A bunch of people. And who was he investigating? Comey, Clapper, McCabe, Brennan. You know, this is now they have to come in and now they have to answer the questions. Even Hillary is fighting the subpoena, right? She doesn't want to come in. They have to drag her in.
That's how powerful the government is right now. Yeah, the good guys. Like, Hillary just said, "Nah, I'm not going."
Yeah.
But you have a subpoena by law. Nah, I'm too important.
Yeah, that's what she said. She's too important. That's what she said. She's too important.
So let me get this straight. I can't walk across the street with my kids, right? For my 7-year-old ride a bike because they created a mythical virus, you know, or not a mythical virus, but a false scare.
Yeah.
But Hillary Clinton, who's she's not even alive, right? I mean, like, they're basically talking about destroying the brand name of Hillary Clinton, right? Because she's been dead. But so she can get away with just, no, I'm not colored. You know, I'm just no big deal.
Yeah.
That's where we live. Then why can't the people just say, you know what, we don't comply.
Right.
We do not comply with any of this nonsense anymore.
Well, this is, you know, I'm not really, you know, saying this is the right way to go, but I'm just bringing this up. But Jimmy Dore is saying we need to organize a general strike. This is the time. They're not listening to the people. You know, so
General strike on what?
you know, just people just strike. You get out en masse, you march, say we're not going back to work until you basically, you know, listen to what we have to say, because he's saying that like all the stimulus package and everything, that it's all garbage. That $1,200 check and everything they're going to deduct it from your taxes, right? So it's nothing, right? Is what he's saying. So that's his take on it. Well, listen, I don't know what the details are, right? I don't know what he knows or doesn't know, but I'm just saying that he's calling for action, right? So that's from that wing, which is the socialist wing of society. Watch it, and I think that he's going to he possibly can, because he's basically he's been so upset by Bernie, right? And he said Bernie has a deal with the Democratic Party just to corral them, right, and then turn everything over to Biden, or ongoing. That's his role, so he doesn't become Ralph Nader.
But here's the thing. So when you have somebody who's got the right sway, right, they've got a powerful delivery. They're saying the right thing, and they mean well.
Yeah.
The worst part about that is when they're misinformed.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. If he's saying mass strike, I'd say it's the opposite. We're on strike. Everybody's on strike.
Yeah.
Here's what we need to do. Let's do the opposite.
That's why I said I'm not advocating it. I'm not advocating what he said. I understand why he's saying it. I understand his emotion behind it, his incentive. He wants something to happen. He's frustrated by the system, right? But he thinks that this isn't anything other than engaging the system in what it wants. All right? It wants everyone to stay at home. He doesn't understand the bigger picture of it, right? Because it's just the big red pill, right? He doesn't get that. Right?
Yeah, it's like someone being harassed by a woman being harassed by an aggressive man who's always hitting on her, and she's like, "That's it. I'm going to teach him a lesson, and I'm just going to go sleep with them." It's like, wait a minute. I don't think you understand how this works, right? That's what Jimmy Dore suggested. Like, they want us out of work. They want us to stop. They want us to quit.
Yes.
Right? Striking is essentially quitting, right?
Yes.
So
Right. You're going to listen to us. We're not going to go to work until... Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We'll let you know when we'll set that appointment. Well, I guess it's a good place to end. What do you think?
Yeah, sorry for being late, and thanks for hanging and talking for a bit.
Well, you stay online.
I'm good, man.
Stay online
have a
for a
great
minute.
night.
You stay online though.
Oh, I will.
Don't go.
I'll stay here. I'll wait for you.
Say goodbye, everybody, and we'll catch everyone tomorrow. Be sure to share.
Right.
Be sure to like. Be sure to subscribe. Again, you might not be subscribed. Just check it out, and we'll see you tomorrow.